fellow Berlin enthusiasts. Welcome to the GMB Berlin podcast. This is where I go out and chat to Berlin's coolest creators, founders, and free spirits of all those unique eco-minded projects in the capital. Or simply those who are trying to make the city even more beautiful, livable, and fun for everyone. I do my very best to extract their stories, secrets, and passions to help you get lots and lots of inspiration of what you can do and experience in this magical city, and how we can all shake the world a little bit. Super glad to have you with me on this journey. Now let's go green in this urban jungle, and remember, always be prepared to be amazed. Hey fellow Berlin enthusiasts, welcome to session number 8 of the GMB Berlin podcast. Today's episode is one of the stories, when you hear about them, you're gonna have your mouth wide open and think, how is this possible? You know that I love projects that really challenge the status quo. So I made my way to Friedrichshain, walked into the backyard behind Berlin's famous electro club Watergate, right by the River Spree, and knocked on the door of the Flussbad project Berlin to chat to Jan Edler. And if you haven't heard about the project yet, Flussbad is about to create a natural swimming pool just along the UNESCO side of Museum Island. So right in a very static, historic area of the city. And you maybe can imagine that some people get very excited about that and some throw their hands up in despair. And we talk about all that, and it's been incredible to meet Jan. He's such a fascinating character, and he was so open about everything. He made me see the project in a completely different light, because it's not just gonna be the world's biggest swimming pool. You know, the swimming is a nice side effect, but what it's really about is re-accessing a lost part of our city. We traveled back in time to the 1920s, over to the exciting times of the post-war era where really everything seemed possible, times that made utopian thinking and ideas like Flussbad possible, and also a time that created that unique Berlin sense of freedom that still exists on, at least a little bit today. Man, we talked about all that and so much more, like how to deal with naysayers, why perseverance is one of the most important traits you can have, and why Flussbad still needs your help, and how you can best get involved. But now, I'm not gonna keep you waiting any longer. Enough for the intro. I'm sorry, I'm always going crazy here. So lean back, open your ears, and let's get into the show. Hey, what's up everyone? Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm joined here by Jan from Flussbad, which is an incredible project, and he's going to tell you everything about it in a bit. Jan, welcome to the GMB Berlin podcast. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for letting me be here.
Yeah, pleasure. I'm so excited, which I often am, but today it's special because you and your team are working on one of the most exciting urban development projects in the city. And I remember when I first heard about Flussbad, I think it was in 2014, I was still working at the Visit Berlin office, and I thought, wow, it sounds beautiful. These guys have a big vision there, but at the same time, it seemed also a bit too good to be true. And now, look where you are. And I'm not gonna hold it back anymore. You are about to revive an unused stretch of the River Spree and turn it into an enormous natural swimming pool. I can't wait to hear where it's at and how you've come so far. So I want to jump straight in. What's the situation right now as we speak? Like, how far are you and when can we jump in?
It will take a while. Flussbad is a very old project. We have been working on that project for nearly 20 years now.
Really? Wow.
It was my brother and me publishing the project for the first time in 1997, 1998.
Wow.
So it has a very long history, and it was a typical project for us at that time, where we were having an art association and we were trying to develop projects on our own. So it was kind of looking at unlocked potentials in the city fabric and the river, the Spree Canal, because that was right in front of our door. And so I'm actually quite amazed how far we got as well, because for quite a long time it was looking like a project which would be absolutely unrealistic to consider to become reality. And where are we? Basically, we are working on the project. It will take a while until we can go swimming and we can hope to swim. We are aiming for 2025 right now. Mm-hmm. The water is still dirty, but it's also not dirty every day. And that's an important thing to understand about the project, because basically the project is not trying to claim constructing a huge swimming pool in the city center, but rather trying to make use of a void. Berlin has always been dealing very pragmatically with the river in the past, so there was different needs like fishing, transport and things like that, and defense. And usually when a certain function was not needed anymore, you got rid of that stretch of water, because it didn't make sense anymore. So there was, for instance, in 1680 there was a defense ring around Berlin, so was this typical star-shaped thing. That's where the S-Bahn is running nowadays, because there was a space to build it. You know? So because you got rid of that water and you could build something else. And the Spree Canal, that was the former shipping route which ran through Berlin. And there was a harbor in front of the castle, and so it was a very, very busy situation, while the main Spree, which is the northern side of the island, that was for energy production. So there were the mills. But then when the steam engine was invented and the mills weren't used anymore or needed anymore, it was a pragmatic decision to move the shipping towards the other side of the island, and that's when basically the Spree Canal lost its original function. And nowadays it's not possible to go through there with a ship, because there is no functioning lock anymore. So since then, basically, that arm has been forgotten, and today it's mainly used for getting rid of high water, or floods. So when we have a lot of water to push through Berlin, then the channel or the Spree Canal has a certain value. And of course, for getting rid of the overflow of our canal system, and that's the actual reason why the water is not good. But that's only happening 15 to 30 times a year. So usually, actually, when the water arrives in Berlin, the Spree is quite clean. So it's good for swimming, and people also do in the lakes before Berlin.
Do.
And the problem is caused in Berlin itself, and that's basically happening through this mixed sewage system, and then the water gets poisoned.
You were saying also, some days it's clean and some days it's not. Is that what you meant with that? Or?
Exactly. It's as I said, it's about 15 to 30 times a year that happens, and it's a very standard way of canal system which you have in most cities in the world, and it means you have one pipe in the street, and you collect the rainwater and as well as the wastewater from the industry and from the households. And then when it rains very heavily, the capacity of that system is just not large enough to transport everything to the plant. And so it spills into the river, and then periodically the river gets really poisoned, and that's a big problem.
Right, okay, that sounds like
medieval times, I would say.
But for now, just thinking back about the Flussbad project and how it's going to look like, can you paint us a picture in your head so that people out there can visualize it? Like how it's going to look like, how long is it, where are the changing rooms, things like that.
Okay, so basically the canal is 2 kilometers long. We have the swimming section, which is approximately 840 meters long, from Bodo Museum to the Foreign Ministry. And
that's huge.
It's very huge. So it's good for sports swimming and to take long laps. And you have to picture, we do not want to construct a swimming facility. You were mentioning changing facilities and stuff like that. But it's more like a clean river in the city, and we try to clean the water, which is happening a little bit further up the river. But we try to clean the water and make the clean part of the river accessible. So there's going to be large staircases where you can enter the clean water, and you can sit in the sun and enjoy yourself alongside the river. So it's more like a natural resource.
Super nice.
And it's not like paying and getting in and all this hassle of a swimming pool.
Yeah, that would have been my question as well. If it's completely open, or is there something like an entrance, like a Badeschiff or so, but you just mentioned?
No entry fee, just a clean river in the city.
Right.
And we clean the water, as I said. So that's the middle section of the canal, where between the Foreign Ministry and Leipziger Straße, that's nearly 400 meter long, that stretch, and here we will have a natural plant filter. So that's a very traditional way of cleaning water, but usually not in a river. So you usually do not clean a whole river, so it's a bit new in that sense that we try to clean all the water that is coming through. And that's a sand bed, basically, where the water is pushed through, and there is a weir in the river, and we have a height difference of 1.50 meters. And this 1.50 meters, where the water falls down, gives us the power to push the water of the river through the sand. And while the water is pushed through the sand and the filter, it's being cleaned, and it's being cleaned by bacteria that are growing in the sand.
Okay, in the sand. Okay.
Yeah, and you call it a plant filter, but the plants actually do not really filter. They supply oxygen to the bacteria in the ground, so they survive.
The bacteria. And so much force in nature.
That's how you clean water for like Uferfiltrat, you know. When you drill fountains on the edge of rivers in order to get drinking water, that's actually the water, the way how water is being cleaned there. So it's a very traditional way of doing so. The only special thing is that we're doing it in a river, and we're trying to clean the complete river.
Wow. That sounds really, really amazing. You turn back to pretty old techniques and just adjust them on a bigger scale and a bigger project. I'm super curious to know, how do you come up with this idea? Like, was it on a little drunken night out, or did you play around of, wouldn't it be cool if?
Yeah, it was a little bit like that. It was my brother. We were working as part of this art association called Kunst und Technik, which was also a nightclub at that time. It was this after-war time in Berlin, and we were having a bar, a beach bar, one of the first beach bars in Berlin.
Where was it?
Right next to the Bode Museum.
Really?
Where today you can go tango tanzen.
Yeah.
So that there was a location of our building. It was the former animal testing lab of Charité Hospital.
Right.
And we had a 600 square meter building, and we used that to do art exhibitions, and we had our studio there with 9 people and working there. And we had the bar. And but it was not a drunk idea, but it was rather being there every day and having the canal in front of your eyes, and realizing that it's not being used. And you have to imagine, looking back, you have to see it was a time when, like, every little bit of the center was being discussed of how it should look like in the future and how it should be used like, you know. So it was this a time of transition for the center, and even though this was one of the biggest voids, nobody was talking about it. And so Tim started thinking about what to do with it, and that's how the idea slowly developed. And then we published it for the first time, and the Baustadtrat of the district Mitte at that time, I think he liked the idea, and he used the phrase that the idea would be unrealistic enough that we can discuss about it without any prejudice, you know? It's like, so, and in a way that shows very, very clearly it was being sensed as a crazy idea at that time. Berlin had different problems than thinking about how to clean the river and if it would be possible to swim in the river.
I believe so, yeah.
And that took a long time for the transition of the perspective of people of what is the river's function in the city.
Yeah.
And is it for shipping, or shall we look at the river as a natural resource and as a living thing, basically, in the hearts of our cities? And I think that's a transition point we have. Everybody wants to be at the river now, and we would like to go this extra step to access water and to get inside.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I mean, it's exactly what you say. It's pretty much the river is there, and of course you can take a walk along it and everything, but it feels kind of a bit detached from us. Like, there's so much water, and water has so much good energy, and so basically you're building something that's good really for everyone, like for the Berliners who can claim back a little bit of nature in their city, what we need so much nowadays. But also, of course, for visitors, it's going to be a nice way when also Berliners come back in and kind of have a mix of not only this static tourist area, but also drawing in locals again. Have you always been a bit of a utopist, a bit of a dreamer?
I don't know. We do have a studio where we do kind of unusual projects, I would say. We are both trained architects, but we don't do proper architecture. But we somehow do projects on the borderline between art, architecture and communication. And we have been doing that for 20 years, and Flussbad is our oldest project, actually. And it's definitely the biggest project, and it's also the most urban project. I think we have a tradition of, as I said earlier, like looking for potentials we see and trying to use them. And maybe it's a bit like when you study architecture, very often you're being trained to be someone who's solving problems and seeing the world through the glasses of solving problems all the time sometimes can be really frustrating. And sometimes it's nice to have a shift and rather look out for things that you think could transport you a step further in a certain direction and discover those. It's doing a similar thing, but it's a different perspective. Maybe that's what we have been doing in a series of projects.
Yeah, all right. Now I'd really love to go a bit further into the whys of Flussbad, because I think it's such a cool future thinking project to clean and green our city, and it could potentially inspire other cities out there to follow, maybe not in the same way, but just in general. So therefore, what are the major reasons for you to do this? Like, what drives you, what gets you excited, and what keeps you going so long?
Yeah, that's a good question, because the project, of course, has not only friends, but there's also people in the city who are very skeptical
I can imagine that
approach. In the first place, people always try to limit the project, and it's our own fault because we called ourselves Flussbad Berlin, which is kind of focusing on the swimming. It's reduced to the idea of like this urban pool. And I think that's actually the least important aspect from our perspective.
Right.
So we like the idea of swimming, of course, but as I said earlier on, we were not like swimming fanatics who tried to find the best location to go swimming in the very center of Berlin, but it was more like discovering this very huge space in the city which was not being used. For me, most intriguing is the aspect of looking at the historic center of Berlin, which is coined very much by representation and official buildings. So there is hardly any authentic life from people who live there.
And museums and tourists.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of museums, a lot of tourists, and all that is very important for the city, of course, and it's good that we have that, and we can be proud of it. but at the same time we know the images of city centers which have become museums themselves, and where there is no life anymore. And I think we are hoping that Flussbad is one way of implementing this very simple but authentic piece of life, and which brings different people to the city center.
That would be great.
And where they can actually meet. And in this way, for me, also this the staircase we had at Lustgarten as an image, and which has been discussed a lot because it's a shingle wall, and it's the heritage protection people go bonkers looking at that image because we're destroying shingle basically at that point. We were very naive, and for us it was this metaphor of having a meeting space basically, and where people gather and they can access the water. I think from today's perspective we do not depend on that staircase. It can also be elsewhere.
Would be nice though,
so that's at least one thing that is driving me a lot. But there is also other aspects which go along with it. I think there is definitely the whole idea of the sustainable development of our cities. We all know it's one of the most important themes that we have in order to redevelop our cities for the future, and to convert them to become sustainable, or more sustainable at least. And we think that Flussbad might be this tangible element that you can have in the city center, and where people understand how sustainable development can actually feel and look like. So it's not abstract like putting solar panels on your rooftop, or having wind turbines standing in front of the city, but something that people can touch, feel, and relate to in a very direct way. And therefore the location is also perfect to look at something like that, because of course the museum island is the most valuable, or one of the most valuable things we have in the city center. And of course it's coined to look at how our society was formed, and is formed in maybe also how it's formed in the future. And maybe that's the very location where we should discuss important things like that.
Yeah, it'll draw a lot of attention. People will see it. They will be there, and it's also, as you say, it's a government area as well, official area. It's a tourist area. But then when it draws back in Berliners, it'll kind of hopefully create a place for meeting and for exchanging ideas and thinking about the future. You were also saying that you were dealing with a lot of front wind, like people who don't believe in it or put obstacles in your way. Tell me, what's your major challenge? Like, what gives you most headaches sometimes? Just one.
One thing I mentioned already, which is to marry the idea of having the museum island and the Flussbad. Now, from my perspective, I do not see any reason why swimming in clean water should be worse than having sewage.
Yeah, my God, yeah. Yeah, they probably have this image in their heads of like this, as you say, this kind of swimming pool, and just focus on that and think maybe it'll be not respectful enough if people...
Exactly, I think that's one of the things which lies underneath, that this profane thing of swimming and naked people along the shores of the museum island is going to sink, you know. And it's
but at the same time, I mean, it's not that it's on Warschauer Straße or so, you know. I mean, it's not. Yeah, you probably won't have like a bunch of drunken tourists coming out of the clubs and like just jumping in or so. It's
but that's a picture people
have
paint.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And of course we also argue that we try to bring different people to the city center. And I think that's a very, very interesting discussion, because sometimes you get the sense that one of the main fears is that the wrong people might come. And the wrong people is the picture of drunks and party people and all these people kind of suddenly coining the city center in a complete different way. And I think you really need to stay realistic here. First of all, the museum island is a very homogeneous space, and as long as the museums don't start to open bars and liquor shops and so on, the infrastructure for something like that to happen is not very good. Of course, you will also have probably once in a while drunk people there who party at night, yes, but you have that all over the city. And I think we should not limit ourselves in how we think the future of our city by regulating or down-regulating ourselves in possibilities because we're afraid. Fear is not a good partner here. But you rather need to think of transforming it in a good way. I think, of course, the right design and urban design will be an important part for that. The right alliances with the partners who are on the shore and how they behave and how they integrate a project like that. So it has many aspects. But of course also, I mean, Berlin is a cold city in the winter, and we are also talking about a quite small period of the year where it's really that attractive to go there.
True.
And I think maybe once in a while it can be really crowded, yes, and it's good. Then it's very lively. But I think it's no reason to completely push the idea aside.
That's true. Aren't there any times where you think, you know what, I think it's too hard, I don't want to do this anymore?
No, I don't think so. I mean, of course, sometimes we have trouble and there's frustrating aspects of a long project development, but we are also very lucky right now. We have funding.
Where does it come from?
There was a turning point in 2010-11 because the project was decorated with a very important sustainability award. Suddenly the politicians kind of got aware of the project more, and they got interested in the project. And that was also the point when we decided to form a non-profit association, which is Flussbad Berlin, which was founded by 15 people at that time. And we thought, if we want to land that project for Berlin, we need to transform it to become a project not only for Berlin, but also made by Berliners.
Nice.
And then in 2014, actually it was the Berlin Senate that approached us and said, there is a new program called Nationale Projekte des Städtebaus. So it's National Projects of Urban Redevelopment or something like that. And we want you to apply with us.
Good. So they approached you?
They approached us.
Good.
And so we teamed up, and we had never written a proposal like that. So we did in a very short time. We applied for 4 million euros, and we actually got it. Which was amazing.
My God, how was that day? How did it feel?
Unreal. And then it became really stressful for a time, because you have to imagine the Flussbad Association till that day was basically a few people kind of doing a hobby. We didn't even have a computer or telephone. And then we suddenly had 4 million euros and a very strict plan of how to spend it until the end of 2018.
Wow.
And so it became a little bit restless at that time.
I imagine, yeah.
And the association has grown quite a lot. The money is not for realizing the project, but for further developing it. And the aim is that in the end of 2018, we have a proposal on the table that allows for the government and the politicians to decide if they want to realize the project or not.
Wow, I mean, there's so much going on here with you guys. The 4 million euro funding, it's a huge achievement. Must be really, really proud on how far you come with the project. But now, I want to talk about something that probably all the people out there are really curious about and keen to know, which is, how can I or the people out there get involved already?
There's many ways, I believe. It is important to become member of our association. We do need the money to further keep going. The funding we have nowadays, it's a lot of money, and we are very grateful that we can use public money in a way like that, and we try to do it very properly.
Yeah.
But of course, the focus of that money is
the preparation and research.
It's very strict, and it does not allow for us to keep our association alive. And the idea of an association, of course, it's a difficult one for a project like that, because when you become member of a tennis association, you do that because you want to play tennis. And we are not a swimming association, but we are an association which tries to care about the future of our city center.
But I think there are a lot of Berliners and more people who also, Berliners love to be involved in their city. Is there anything you offer them or something that kind of makes it fun and makes them engaged?
Yeah, we try to engage them in activities. One of the most important one is the Flussbad Pokal, where we go swimming once a year.
Right. When is that happening? It's in summer, right?
This year it's happening on July 3rd, I believe.
Okay.
If we are lucky again.
Yeah.
It will be the third time. We depend on the weather, of course.
Yeah,
so it cannot rain heavily beforehand because we need to test the water in order to make sure that the water quality is okay.
And it means that basically when it's okay, then people can sign up for it and can jump in and can go swimming.
There is a competition in the beginning where you can swim 1,000 meters and you can win the Flussbad Pokal.
Nice.
And afterwards, this year, we will have a less competitive time as well, where we allow people to test swim the canal on the full length for 3 hours. So it will be like a free swimming. So there's a lot of people involved, and there are also a lot of the association members help with that event. That's very important.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say, that brings me back, is that of course the money is important, but also that we are a growing number of people. I think we found the non-profit association back in the time because we said, if enough people in the city do want that project, then it will become reality, which I think is a fair way of looking at it.
Totally.
So we need to become many. If we are enough, then the project will happen, and that's the most important driving force to become a member. So you must sign up. It's not expensive. It's cheap. It's 30 euros per year.
Oh, that's totally good.
So it's worth supporting it.
Awesome. Right. So you guys out there, if you want to support this amazing project, I'll put you all the info in the show notes. Go, be part of it and get involved.
And spread the word.
Exactly. That's really important. Like it's basically about creating a movement, right? It's community of lots of passionate and future thinking, like-minded people, and they need you guys. All right. Now let's switch direction a little bit and talk about the amazing city that makes all of this possible. Why do you think that Berlin is the right place to realize utopian ideas like Flussbad?
That's one of these typical Berlin questions. The way the idea was born, that is kind of very Berlin-like. And that was a time when there was a lot of free unlocked potentials in the city, and Kunst und Technik, the association we had back in the time, was a typical after-Wende project, so it was one of the things where you suddenly had the possibility to have quite a lot of space in the city and to experiment. And I think the accessibility to space and give space to people in order to develop ideas and to work in a creative way, of course, was one of the big potentials of Berlin. I believe there are still people out there who say that Berlin, compared to the other big cities in Europe, still is cheap. I'm slowly doubting it. I just know that from the side of our studio, Realities United, it was very important for us to have access to space and to a lot of space at certain times in order to do certain projects.
Yeah.
And so we were lucky that we were in Berlin at that time, but it gets harder. Because
it's true. It's getting harder, but at the same time, I also think that it's great that there's so many people out there who are actually always keep searching for this space.
Yeah,
and
there's of course.
Yeah, there is still a lot of space. Maybe not. I mean, you would even people would think, oh no, there's no space at all in the city center. But you found the space. Actually, there is a space that's unused, and it's still kind of moving all the time. Maybe we'll have to move out a little bit, but somehow I have the impression that there's always, I don't know, people search for spaces, and if you really open your eyes and your mind, you find them.
Yeah, of course. I mean, one of the big potentials is that Berlin has a very large creative community, which is good in a way to exchange and
Definitely.
stuff like that, and to meet interesting people. I mean, I also love living in Berlin. Don't get me wrong.
Oh no, I don't. But of course, I understand you.
The atmosphere has changed a lot, and it's just tougher. You know, it's just tougher because survival becomes more important. And there was times when you could really survive with very little money in Berlin.
And it just let your creativity and your ideas flow.
Yeah, that's a big potential for a place, and of course it cannot last forever. And I have full understanding that the city needs to move on.
Yeah. You were speaking of the big creative community. In terms of collaboration and exchange, how do you feel about the situation within the Berlin green scene? I mean, not from a political side, but really other actors who are passionate about sustainable developments. Do you think there's enough exchange and mutual support, or do you think it could be more? Like, what's your opinion on that?
I have the feeling it's working quite well. I mean, people know each other and they exchange, and there's also certain formats where you try to meet each other and so on. And from my perspective, that's working quite well. And I'm always surprised how many people are out there who have an amazing amount of energy, you know, to do things.
Yeah.
And that's great. I mean, it's a good location for that.
That sounds good. Yeah, I have the same feeling. I mean, like through the website and through the podcast, obviously, I'm very lucky to meet quite a few of those passionate people who really give their all to just make the city greener and drive all this development and make it fun and accessible for everyone. So it's really great. What makes you feel really excited about the chance of actually reshaping the city and leaving your mark here in your hometown, kind of?
I'm just really, I think it's a good idea. I mean, I think the project is a good idea, and now we have gone all that way, and basically now we want to do it.
Yeah.
And I think it's also the right time.
Yeah.
And we are lucky that the new government in Berlin has chosen to include the Flussbad project in the new coalition contract.
Awesome.
So that's in there.
Didn't know that.
So
wow.
it's an aim for Berlin now, an official one. That doesn't mean it becomes realized, but right now, from the positive feedback we get from that side, I believe it's the right time, and let's do it.
Yeah. Awesome. Huge respect for you guys for that, definitely. I'm not gonna stretch your time for too long anymore. Just a few things that I ask all of my interview guests, which is, first of all, since you started Flussbad like 20 years ago, wow, what was your biggest learning so far? Like your biggest aha moment?
I've been thinking about that quite often. And I think there's many things. There's really many things. But from my perspective, the most amazing thing is that you have the feeling that it is worth keeping on track on a project like that, because it's very unlikely that Well, it seemed very unlikely for a long time that this project could actually become a project for Berlin at a certain time. As I said, it was seen as a utopian idea, and now everybody talks about it as a potential realization project. And
yeah,
I think
it's very close. Feels very real already. Yeah,
yeah, and that I think is quite amazing, and that's a big learning for me that sometimes it's good to keep pushing.
Yeah, it's such a good takeaway, like really for everyone. I mean, there's a lot of people out there with lots of really smart ideas, but it can be tough sometimes. You run against the wall, you think, and then lots and lots of people are just giving up. And yeah, it's definitely the proof that it's worth to keep going. And if you have this big vision in front of you, which is obviously important to pull you, I guess. But yeah, that's great. Right, then, if you could change one thing in Berlin within the next 24 hours, what would it be?
Of course, the mixed sewage system. I mean, I have to say that, right?
Yeah, I was thinking that.
That would be a complete game changer, because then we would have a clean, or more or less clean, river in Berlin, and that would open a complete different perspective to how we could deal with the river.
Yeah. And what is a question I should have asked you but didn't?
There's this one thing which I think we haven't talked about, and which is interesting about the project, or the current development of the project, is that we will actually arrive on site this year. So we will have an information platform in a small cafe in the project area, which is we're lucky that the European School of Management and Technology allow us to use part of their garden.
Awesome.
And it's right next to the canal where we want to swim, and it's a beautiful heritage protected garden. It has not been really public accessible so far, and so we kind of unlock the potential of that garden to a certain extent, and we do that on a very special location, because it's a place where one of the former historic river baths was located in the city. And that's maybe the aspects you have not been questioning about. Is that a new idea? No, it's not, because Berlin has been using the river like that 100 years ago.
Yeah, true.
The last swimming facility closed in 1926. And there was approximately 30 facilities to swim in the river. Of course, they had a different focus at that time. It was because the people needed these public areas in order to clean themselves, because they had no private bathrooms. So it was a very pragmatic way. It was basically ships. So it was swimming facilities. You could go in, and you had like a changing room size thing, and you had a opening in the ground, and you could go into the water and clean yourself and go out again. So very discreet.
Yeah.
But there was also real swimming places alongside the river.
Right.
And there was also a swimming facility right in front of the castle. We have an image of that.
Wow! So, you gotta give that to me. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, it's linking back again to this. You don't always have to completely reinvent the wheel, and just look what worked in the past and then adjust it to our situation today. That's really, really cool. Last question. If there was one thing you could pass on to the Green Me Berlin community, like to the people out there who are listening, just anything that comes to your mind straight away, what would it be?
Communicate. It's really, that's what keeps us going. Communicate the idea. Join us for events we do. Come along and discuss the project and get involved, really. It's become part of the association. It's the most important thing, and I think if we are many, we will do it. Yeah,
it's a really, really nice and empowering way to finish off. Jan, I can't say how much I respect and admire you guys for doing what you do. You're showing up every day, dedicating so much passion and energy to the city and the people living here. It's truly inspiring, and I can't wait to see you at the opening of Flussbad, surrounded by all these happy people who thanks to you and your team and your hard work, can re-access a lost part of the city. I hope that many, many people get inspired and get involved, and I wish you all the best and lots of good energy. Power through.
Thanks so much, and you need to come swimming with us this year.
Oh yeah, great idea.
I count on you, July 3rd.
Great idea, definitely. It's marked in the calendar. Yeah, and I put all the important dates and everything in the show notes so people can read up about it. And yeah, thanks so much again. Hope you have a really nice day.
Thank you.
Oh my God, what an inspiring project. It's unbelievable. These guys are working so damn hard to make this dream a reality. And they've been doing that for nearly 20 years. You know, the Flussbad team is really making such a good point that we shouldn't downregulate our possibilities because we are afraid of something, and we gotta keep going. I absolutely believe in the success of this project and hope that you are too. And I'm definitely gonna join the Flussbad Pokal and go swimming on the 2nd of July. Are you in? Come on, it's gonna be awesome. Do let me know, write me an email, ping me on Facebook, and let's do this together. As always, you find everything you need to know in the show notes at GMB008.com/podcast. This is where I post all my episodes, including the full transcript if you want to read it. So check it out. And share the Flussbad episode with your friends, because you heard it. They can only do it if there's as many people as possible. And also communicate with me. I want to know what you think about this episode and about the podcast in general. If there's something particular you want to hear about, getting your feedback always makes me super happy. So get in touch, write me, don't be shy. And please take a minute to hop over to iTunes, click on the review section and leave me a short review. It really, really, really helps me and is what I need to keep me going. Thank you. And a last little shout out. If you want to stay up to date with the latest interviews, green events and fresh content from me and my explorations around going green in Berlin, then sign up for my monthly newsletter. I got a little thank you if you do so. I'll send you my little best of guide to 7 of my favorite eco-minded places in the city. To get it and download it, just go over to greenmeberlin.com/travel-guides and you'll find it right on the top. All right, I guess I filled up your minds enough now. Time to call it a wrap, huh? Thanks so much for tuning in. Have an amazing day and always remember to keep it green.